The Judge and Humanity, the Untold Story Behind the Gavel. In a bustling courtroom of 1920s England, Judge Edward Hale was known for his stern demeanor and unwavering commitment to the law. To the public, he was the very embodiment of justice, impartial, unyielding, and bound by the codes of the judiciary. But behind the polished gavel and the imposing robes was a man wrestling with a moral conflict that would test the very essence of his humanity. One winter morning, Edward presided over a case that seemed routine at first, a theft trial involving a young immigrant named Amir. Amir had been accused of stealing bread from a wealthy merchant's store. The evidence against him was circumstantial, but the merchant's influence in the community made the case more complicated. The law was clear: theft, if proven, meant imprisonment. As the trial progressed, Edward noticed something unsettling. Amir's eyes were filled not with defiance but desperation. Witnesses testified to his good character, describing him as a hard-working laborer who had fallen on hard times. The merchant, however, demanded strict punishment, arguing that leniency would encourage more crimes. During the recess, Edward reviewed Amir's background. He learned that Amir had come to England to escape famine in his homeland. He had lost his family and struggled to find work in the unfamiliar city. The stolen bread, Edward realized, was not an act of greed but a cry for survival. The law dictated punishment, but Edward's conscience whispered otherwise. That night, he couldn't sleep. His mind replayed the courtroom scenes, and he questioned the very purpose of justice. Was it to uphold the letter of the law or to understand the circumstances of those who stood before it? The next day, Edward delivered his verdict. He found Amir guilty, as the evidence left no room for doubt. However, instead of sentencing him to prison, Edward imposed a fine of 1 shilling, an amount he immediately paid from his own pocket. He also ordered the court to arrange assistance for Amir, ensuring he had access to food and shelter. The courtroom was silent, stunned by the judge's compassion. The merchant protested, but Edward stood firm. Justice, he declared, is not blind to suffering. The law may guide us, but humanity must lead us. Word of Edward's decision spread across the city. Some praised him for his wisdom, while others criticized him for bending the law. For Edward, it was neither victory nor defeat, it was a step toward bridging the gap between justice and mercy. Years later, Edward retired from the bench, leaving behind a legacy not of rulings but of understanding. And Amir? He rebuilt his life, inspired by the judge who saw him not as a criminal but as a human being in need of compassion. This untold story of Judge Edward Hale reminds us that true justice lies not just in the gavel strike but in the humanity that wields it.